The Honourable David Parker.
Mr Chairman, the prior Speaker, Louise Upston, said we should feel sorry for the staff of the Department of Justice, the Ministry of Justice. Yes, we should, because they will be ashamed to have a minister who allows conflicts of interest to put her own and her family's interest ahead of the country's interest, to use her position to benefit her family, to benefit the National Party. That is what has happened here. That is why this is a conflict of interest. That is why the Prime Minister is wrong to continually to pretend it might be the perception of a conflict of interest, because it is a conflict of interest. The Cabinet Office prohibits conflict of interest which benefit the member, the minister, or their family members and close associates. That is what conflict of interest rules are meant to prevent. They are meant to prevent the private benefit going to a minister or their family or close associate. We had the Minister of Police, Anne Tolley, another person in charge of the justice system, and she said that the minister has been open. What the minister said was she had a short cup of tea on the way to the airport. What the minister didn't do was put reference to that meeting, which wasn't a short cup of tea on the way to the airport, in her report back to Cabinet, and to hide the fact that she had an additional evening meeting with Oravida representatives and customs officials and dinner. She hid that. This conflict of interest, Mr Speaker, is one in which the minister has enriched her family through using her contacts for the benefit of Oravida. The first visit and endorsement of Oravida benefited them. It was used by Oravida to increase their sales, to make more money. That was a conflict of interest. That conflict of interest was for the benefit of Judith Collins's family, the director of which is her husband. That is a conflict of interest. This conflict of interest also arises from the donations that the National Party accepted from Oravida in return from the favours that they gave Oravida. The favours including turning up for dinner and meeting with customs officials and Oravida in China. The benefits that no doubt Oravida claims from the photographs of the Prime Minister having a round of golf with the main owner of Oravida, a number of games of golf. These are actual conflicts of interest. What other things don't we believe here? Judith Collins today in the House said that there were no matters of business discussed at that dinner. I do not believe that. It is incredible that you would have customs officials there on the background of melamine scandals and tainted milk coming from New Zealand, that those sorts of issues would not be discussed at that meeting. I bet you that Judith Collins was there saying, you can trust New Zealand milk that's coming from Oravida because we've got good systems. Does anyone in this House really think that those discussions didn't take place? I bet they did. These are real conflicts of interest. Then we've got the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister says the Cabinet Office didn't consider that to be an endorsement, but he won't release their advice. I bet that the Prime Minister is misrepresenting the Cabinet Office, because I cannot believe the Cabinet Office would tell the Prime Minister that even the first bit that was known to him was legit. The Cabinet Office would have been saying it is wrong for a Cabinet Minister to be endorsing products in China of a company that her husband is a director of. The Cabinet Office would be saying it's wrong to be out promoting a company that the National Party has taken donations from. Mr Speaker, I do not believe that the Cabinet Office said it was all kosher. I certainly know now that the Prime Minister says that he was wrong when he said that the Cabinet Officer had seen the translation from the English, from the Oravida website. He has since been forced to say that that is not the case, that the Cabinet Office had not seen it. Mr Speaker, this is an actual conflict of interest. Then if the Prime Minister says it isn't, he's effectively saying to New Zealand the only conflict of interest is a bribe. Anything else is not a conflict of interest. There's got to be a bribe, because there's been cash going to the National Party and favours back to Oravida. There's been appointments of directors that put money into the family of Judith Collins, and that's a conflict of interest. But the Prime Minister says no, it's not, because it's not a direct bribe. Well, I'm sorry, Mr Prime Minister, it might not be convenient to him, but conflicts of interest go further than just bribes. And this is plainly one. And to have the Minister of Police stand up and defend that, the Prime Minister defend it, Bill English refused to address it, is disgraceful, because this is a disgrace. It is an actual conflict of interest, and this Minister should be forced to resign. And why aren't they? Because this is business as usual for the National Party. This is the tip of the iceberg. We know that there's this cronyism rife within the National Party. They get these secret donations to their mates at the big end of town, and they deal them back favours. And this time they've been caught. But it is but the thin end of the wedge, the tip of the iceberg, because this is business as usual under this government, where the rich get richer and everyone else gets a stagnant position. Now, this is why inequality and fairness is the issue for this election, because the electorate know that that's what's happening in New Zealand. This government serves the big end of town, and everyone else, well, they can worry about themselves. Well, under Labor, this won't happen. Everyone will get a fair deal, and conflicts of interest will be called a conflicts of interest. One final point, sir. Why hasn't Judith Collins taken a call? I've been in a similar situation like this. In fact, I resigned. I took a call. I was willing to come here and defend myself and put the truth out there. Judith Collins, not to be seen. Bill English won't address the issues, and the Minister of Police defending her, saying that she's been open. What a disgrace! What a disgrace! I cannot understand that the Prime Minister will not concede this is an actual conflict of interest, not some perception of a conflict of interest. This is a situation where the Minister's family benefits from Oravida doing better. Benefits from Oravida doing better. That's what the endorsement was about. That's what the meeting with custom officials were about. That's why they're conflicts of interest. And that, Mr Speaker, it is truly that simple. This is improper behaviour by the Minister for the benefit of her family that she tried to cover up, that the Prime Minister then tried to cover up, and the Prime Minister even now says is only an alleged conflict of interest or an apparent conflict of interest, not an actual conflict of interest. Mr Speaker, there would not be any clearer case than this. I cannot think of a clearer case, Mr Speaker. The Prime Minister is saying that effectively there has to be a bribe before there's any conflict of interest. That's effectively the standard he's saying, because I can't think of a more clear case of a conflict of interest than doing something that benefits a company of which your husband is a director. As a minister, she went to China. She had these meetings. She didn't put them in her report to Cabinet. That's quite in contrast to her earlier reports to Cabinet. She said, oh, well, it's because it was only a little cup of tea, when in actual fact, what about the dinner at night with the customs officials, her own ministerial staff, who she said were there as friends, not as ministerial representatives? What a nonsense, Mr Speaker. This is a bit like Peter Dunn saying when he leaked the report that he was acting as a member, not as a minister. Therefore, the emails between him and others aren't disclosable under the Official Information Act. We have all these dissembling on behalf of the other, on the other side, but the truth is, this is dirty. This is a conflict of interest. The minister acted for the benefit of her family and for the benefit of the National Party, and the National Party don't even think it's wrong because it's business as usual according to their standards.
Mr Speaker.
The Honourable Chris Tremaine.